Henry Sanders sat in the hospital room, clutching the hand of his best friend, Jack Rawlins. Jack looked weak, his breathing labored, his skin pale. The doctors said he had days, maybe hours, to live. Henry, I have to tell you something," Jack whispered, his eyes misting over his friend. Henry leaned closer, feeling Jack's cold fingers squeeze his hand. "What is it, Jack?" "Don't worry, I'm here," he replied, trying to hide his anxiety. Jack a deep breath before saying the words that made Henry freeze. "Betrayed you, Henry, and I have to confess before I go." Henry felt the blood rush to his face. "What are you talking about, Jack? What do you mean?" Jack closed his eyes, as if trying to find the strength to continue. "I did something many years ago. I took advantage of your trust. I know you won't forgive me, but I can't die without telling you the truth." Henry was stunned. He looked at Jack, not believing his ears. "Jack, you're my best friend. We've been through everything together. What could you do to betray me?" But Jack didn't answer. He passed out, leaving Henry alone with his words. This conversation haunted Henry all night. He couldn't sleep, constantly remembering the look on Jack's face. What was he hiding? How could I not notice? He thought. The next episode will show Henry remembering their past together, trying to understand if there were signs of betrayal and why Jack decided to reveal the truth now. Episode 2G, the past extended version, 1,500 words. The next morning, Henry sat in his old armchair by the fireplace, holding a photograph. In it, he and Jack, young and smiling, stood next to a small sign that read Sanders and Rawlins, the best furniture in town. It was their first business together, a furniture store they had opened nearly 50 years earlier, and Henry closed his eyes and memories came flooding back. He remembered the day they had met. It had been in the army. Jack was a sergeant major, Henry a junior officer. On his first day, Jack had saved Henry from trouble by taking the blame for a botched joke. "I couldn't leave you alone in this mess, Henry. We're a team," Jack had said then. Those words became the foundation of their friendship. They returned home together after their service, and Jack suggested that Henry start a business. "You're a talented craftsman, Henry, and I know how to sell. Together we can build something great," he said. The early years were difficult, but they supported each other. Jack always found words to encourage Henry. "Don't worry, we'll make it. Tomorrow will be better," he would say when sales were down. The business began to flourish, and Henry considered Jack not only his partner but also a brother. They spent holidays together with their families, shared secrets and dreams. But now Henry began to question everything he knew about this friendship. Were there signs? Could I have missed something? He asked himself. Henry remembered how a few years ago Jack had started to travel a lot, justifying it by business needs. Negotiate new contracts. "It's for both of us," he would say. The Henry had trusted him, even when he hadn't seen the documents or the reports. Now he realized that this trust might have been his biggest mistake. Henry also remembered the occasion when the store's accountant, Mrs. Grace, had hinted at strange financial transactions. "Mr. Sanders, are you sure you've approved all the expenses?" she had asked him once. Henry had simply laughed then. "Jack knows what he's doing. I trust him," he replied. But now the words rang in his head like accusations. "I was blind. I wanted to see only the best in him," Henry thought. These thoughts gave him mixed feelings. He couldn't understand why Jack, his closest friend, would deceive him. Henry returned to the hospital the next day. His conversation with Jack had been interrupted, and now he felt he had to find out the truth, no matter how bitter it might be. Jack looked even weaker, but when he saw Henry, he tried to sit up in his hospital bed. "You're back," he whispered. "Yes, Jack. I want to know everything. You said you betrayed me. What did you mean?" Henry asked calmly but intensely. Jack looked at him with eyes filled with regret. "Henry, I didn't dare tell you for a long time. It started many years ago." Henry froze, unable to look away from his friend. Jack continued. "When we first started our business, I made a mistake. I took some money from the cash register to cover my personal debts. It was a small thing, but it became a habit." Jack's words hit Henry like a bolt from the blue. "You took money from our business. Why didn't you tell me then?" Jack looked away. "I was scared, Henry. I thought I could get it back, but it only got worse. I got involved in gambling. It seemed innocent at first, but then I lost more than I could afford." Henry felt his heart sink. "You took the money we earned together to play at the casino. What about me? What about our trust?" Jack tried to justify himself. "I thought I could fix it, but every year it got worse. And then I found a way." "What way?" Henry insisted. Jack hesitated before answering. I sold your share of the business to one of our clients. That was 10 years ago. You thought we just got a big contract, but it was actually a sales deal. I left you with a salary, and I got control. Henry felt the ground slipping from under his feet. You sold my share. You took everything we created together from me. Jack closed his eyes as if trying to avoid his friend's gaze. I can't justify myself, Henry. But I want you to know that I regret it every day. I couldn't leave without telling you the truth. Henry stood up, anger rising in him. The truth. You only remember the truth when you're on the verge of death. Why? Jack, why did you decide to destroy me now? Jack started to cough, but he mustered the strength to answer. Because you were the only person who ever believed in me, and I didn't want you to die thinking I was worthy of that belief. Henry stood in the ward, looking at his friend lying before him. His anger was mixed with regret and confusion. You didn't just take my money, Jack. You took my trust. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for that. Jack closed his eyes, his breathing even more shallow. Henry left the ward, feeling his world begin to crumble. Returning home after Jack's confession, Henry felt devastated. His house, once filled with warmth and memories, now felt empty and alien. He couldn't shake the thought of Jack's words. Henry walked to his office, where a box of old business documents sat on a shelf. He hadn't opened it in years, but now he felt he had to. As he pulled out the papers, Henry came across the reports Jack had once given him. No, at first glance, everything looked fine, but now he began to notice details he had previously ignored, amounts that didn't add up, signatures missing, and sometimes entire pages missing. How could I have been so blind? Henry asked himself. He had always trusted Jack. Even when Mrs. Grace, the accountant, hinted at inconsistencies, he had defended his friend. Suddenly, Henry felt anger welling up in him. Jack used me. He took everything we built together and didn't even tell me. And now that he's dying, he wants me to forgive him. Henry pounded his fist on the table. This betrayal hurt more than anything else in his life. Henry barely slept that night. He wandered through the empty house, thinking about all the times he and Jack had spent together. He remembered how Jack had supported him after his wife died. Even how he had always been there when Henry needed advice or support. Was this whole friendship fake? He asked himself. The next morning, Henry called Sarah, his daughter. Sarah, you're not going to believe what I found out. Jack betrayed me. He stole my business and hid it for years, he said, trying to hide his emotions. Sarah was silent for a few seconds before answering. Dad, this is terrible. But you always said Jack was like a brother to you. Maybe he did it out of fear or weakness, not out of malice. The words infuriated Henry. Sarah, how can you say that? He stole everything from me. He cheated on me for years. Sarah tried to calm him down. Dad, I understand your anger, but is it worth carrying this pain with you? You always said that forgiveness makes us stronger. Henry couldn't take it. He hung up the phone and went for a walk, trying to calm himself down. Outside, he saw a couple of elderly men playing chess in the park. They were laughing and joking, and it brought back memories of how he and Jack had often played together. Henry stopped, feeling the pain in his chest intensify. Why did it all turn out like this? We could have lived out our days as friends, but now I don't even know who he really was. That evening, Henry went home and began writing a letter to Jack. Jack, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you. You took away the trust I've built up over the years, but I want to understand why you did it. You were my brother, and I can't believe it was just greed. Henry. He put the letter in an envelope but never sent it. A few days later, Henry sat in his office, surrounded by old photographs and letters that had accumulated over the years. He felt like he had to go back in time to find the answers to his questions. He picked up one of the photographs, which showed him Jack and their families. They were sitting at a large table in the park, celebrating the opening of a store. Henry smiled, remembering Jack saying, Henry, this is our first big success, but believe me, this is just the beginning. The words had sounded sincere, but now Henry was beginning to wonder if Jack had really meant our success. As he leafed leafed through other photos, he came across a picture taken a few years after the store opened. In the picture, Jack stood next to a man Henry only now recognized, Frank Miller, the entrepreneur who would later be part owner of their business. Henry remembered Jack insisting on working with Frank. He's going to help us expand, Henry. This is our opportunity, Jack had said. Now Henry realized that this was where the betrayal began. Jack planned it all, and I trusted him blindly, he thought. Henry to confirm his suspicions. Henry decided to contact Mrs. Grace, the store's former bookkeeper. Mrs. Grace, you always said there was something wrong with our finances. Can you tell me more? He asked into the phone. Mrs. Grace was silent for a long time before answering. Mr. Sanders, I've always respected you. But Jack was cunning. He always hid documents, and I had no evidence to say anything. I saw him manipulate the numbers, but I couldn't accuse him without facts. These words only confirmed what Henry already knew. Thank you, Mrs. Grace. You've done more than you could, he said before hanging up the phone. That evening, Henry sat by the fireplace, holding an old diary he had once kept. He flipped through the pages, reading his notes about the days he had spent with Jack. One of the notes caught his attention. Today, Jack proposed expanding the business. He says it's a great opportunity for us. I trust him, but I have my doubts. Isn't it too risky? Henry paused, feeling mixed emotions. Why didn't I listen to my doubts? I let him take advantage of my trust, he thought. But among these notes he found moments that reminded him why they were friends. Jack came to see me today when I was sick. He brought me soup and said, Henry, you need to get well. I can't run this business without you. These memories made Henry wonder, could their friendship be both sincere and treacherous? The day came when Henry decided to return to the hospital. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he felt he had to see Jack again. The room was silent, broken only by the steady hum of the vital signs monitor. Jack looked even weaker, but when he saw Henry, his eyes lit up a little. You're back, Jack whispered, smiling faintly. Yes, you're back, but not to comfort you, Jack. I want to know, was there anything real about our friendship? Henry asked, trying to control his anger. Jack looked at him, tears welling in his eyes. Henry, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that everything we went through together was real. I was weak when I made those mistakes. But that doesn't mean I didn't value our friendship. Henry leaned closer, looking him straight in the eye. You didn't just take my money, Jack. You took my faith in people. How can I live with that? Jack sighed. I'm not asking you to forget, Henry. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I've tried my best all my life, but my mistakes have haunted me. You were the only person who ever believed in me, and I betrayed you. That's my greatest sin. Henry fell silent, feeling his heart clench with conflicting emotions. He thought back to the times they'd spent together, the laughter, the travels, the support. And yet, the images of betrayal flashed before his eyes. He sat down in the chair next to Jack's bed. Jack, you've hurt me like I've never felt before, but I can't deny that you were a part of my life. And maybe you were right, our friendship was real, even if you ruined it. Jack listened silently, tears streaming down his cheeks. Henry, I know it's not enough, but thank you for being here. You're better than I ever deserved. Anna. That night Jack died. Henry left the hospital feeling devastated, but also a little relieved. He knew he had done everything he could to get answers. A few days later, Henry decided to visit Jack's grave. Hohenahai brought with him a letter he had written earlier and left it on the tombstone. The letter read, Jack, you were my friend and you betrayed me, but you were also the person who helped me through the hardest times. I don't know if I can completely forgive you, but I am ready to put that betrayal in the past. You were a part of my life and I cannot deny that. Goodbye, my friend, Henry. Friends, this story reminds us that even in the closest relationships there can be a place for betrayal, but can you find the strength to forgive? If you liked this story, subscribe to our channel. We tell you about a life that makes you think. See you soon!